Awesome. So welcome everyone. Thank y'all so much for being here. I'm super excited to talk about these love languages. And so let's get started. The 5 love languages and human design. So first, I want to do a sound check. I want to make sure that everybody can hear me, that everyone can see my video. And so just type hi into the chat and I'll make sure that, and that way I can make sure that y'all can hear me and validate that this is getting recorded. Also, as I go through this, I'm not going to be taking questions during my presentation, but afterwards I am. And so if you have a question at any point, please type that into the chat. That's going to be really cool. I am going to make sure that I have time to go back and get those. However, if you don't make the question very specific, when I'm going back to look at it, I won't know what you're referring to. So if you can just make sure that whenever you ask the question at any point during the presentation, you just make sure that you add the details and all the specifics. So that way, whenever I go back, I can make sure I'm answering the question correctly. So who am I? I am Kristin Shorter. I am a level 4 human design specialist. I have co-authored the Abundance by Design book with Karen, and my niche is parenting. I love kids, and I know that I'm here for kids. You know, some people are here for female entrepreneurs or politics. I'm here for kids, and I love using human design and communication techniques to deepen your connection with your children, with your partner, with your loved ones, or just having great communication skills. It's just such a great quality to have in life. And by the end of this webinar, I want to make sure that you can identify your love type using your human design chart. So make sure everyone has their human design chart handy, and also your loved ones, right? Your kids, right? I want to make sure that y'all can understand how to identify your bonding strategy, how your human design attracts things to it, how to identify any electromagnetics inside of your chart, and how to identify some of those areas that may be inhibiting you from expressing your love or feeling loved. Okay? How does that sound? So who has read Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages? You know, this book has been around since the early 90s. It has been modified for parents, for kids, for business, inside the workplace. This book has been around a really long time, and it's just such a great book that will really support you in promoting more love inside of your relationships. And for those of you who haven't read this book before, the premise is that there are 5 universal ways to express and experience love. And Gary Chapman calls them love languages. And I think that's just a really beautiful phrase, because whenever you can interpret someone's behavior, then it is a language, right? Body language. So of the 5 love languages, one of them, I'm going to go through those really quick. The first one I'm going to talk about is receiving gifts. You know, when someone is making something to give you, or maybe they're just buying something for you, that is a way to show love. Acts of service. When someone's doing something for you, you know, that feels really special, feels really great. And physical touch, you know, getting that affection, lots of hugs, holding hands, snuggling. Words of affirmation, you know, telling your loved ones how you feel about them, how valuable they are to you, how much you just adore them. And quality time, you know, spending time with your loved ones. These are the 5 love languages that Gary Chapman defines in his book. So how does this fit into human design? Well, here's the fun part, okay? What I want to do right now is I just want to throw some stuff out at y'all, and then I'm going to talk about where I found that in the human design chart and how you can find it yourself. So receiving gifts. One of the gates that lives to receive gifts are the money gates, the will center, the gate 14. Gate 14 responds to resources. Okay, so when it receives a gift, it gets lit up. The gate 21. The gate 21 is all about control, controlling those resources so that everyone has enough. And the gate 45 is the gate of the queen or the king. And the gate 45 is incredibly generous. It loves spending tons of money on people and definitely getting those gifts reciprocated is going to be really cool for these particular gates if people have these gates. Also non-energy types, the projector, the reflector, the manifestor, they're not here to work in the same way that the generators are here to work. And generators are actually designed to work. When they find the right job, it lights them up. It energizes them so that they can keep working. Okay. And so receiving gifts for non-energy types is really important because they won't have sustainable energy to go out and do everything and create everything that they want. Acts of service. Okay, so some of the gates here is the gate 29. The gate 29 is the gate of commitment, and sometimes it can overcommit. Okay, it loves commitment. It loves having committed friendships, committed plans. If you're making a plan with the gate 29, you better stick to that plan, especially if they have a defined will center. They're all about commitment. And the gate 29 can sometimes overcommit. And so if you do things for the gate 29, that's something that they really see and value. Also, the defense circuit. The defense circuit is made up from the channels that run from the spleen to the sacral and from the sacral to the emotional solar plexus. And those gates are the 59-6 and the 50-27. Now the 50-27, it will cook for you. It will clean for you. It will educate you, your children, your tribe. It will nurse you back to health. It will nurse your mindset. The 2750 loves nurturing you, and that's an act of service for them. Also, the 59-6. The 59-6 will go out and hunt for you and kill for you and protect you and make sure that you have more than enough, that you are provided for and that your family's provided for. And so sometimes you see the 59-6 working really hard, and that is their act of service. That's how they are showing their love for you. And of course, again, non-energy types are not going to necessarily have the sustainability to create all of the resources that they need or desire or that they want to provide for their tribe, for their family. And so doing things for non-energy types is going to be really important, and understanding why that happens. If you have a projector or a manifestor or a reflector child, they're not really going to be able to, do huge chores every single day. They're just not meant for that after spending, 8 hours at school and having to wake up at 6 a.m. and getting home at, 3:30 p.m. They're not going to have, and then they have homework, it's just like they're really not going to be able to have a lot of energy to do those. And so they really need you to support them. And whenever you do an act of service for them, it's really valuable for them. They really appreciate it. Physical touch. We see this here in the tribal circuitry. The tribal circuitry and human design, it incorporates the throat to the will center to the solar plexus to the root to the spleen to the will center, okay? And the defense circuit is part of the tribal circuitry, and especially the defense circuit loves physical touch, and it needs physical touch, especially if they have the gate 59, okay? And again, the defense circuit runs from the spleen center to the sacral, and from the sacral center to the solar plexus. And also generators. Generators really like physical touch, okay? Especially when it comes to sleep. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. All right? Words of affirmation. The open throat, if you have a child who has an open throat or a partner whose throat is undefined, they will feel invisible. And so speaking words of affirmation to them lets them know, oh, I see you, I acknowledge you, I recognize what you're doing for our family, and I appreciate it. The G center, okay, the G center, it's one of those centers that when it's open, it will question its lovability. And so reaffirming your love for the open G center is very important. Also the defined G center, the defined G center, it doesn't question its lovability, but it will ask you, do you love me for who I am? Because this is my identity and I can't change no matter what. The ego center, the will center, pump up that ego, baby. Give me some words of affirmation. And I have a will center, so I can speak to this. Gate 12, this is a fun one. This is the gate of articulation. And they are great. They're a wordsmith, when they're in the mood, when the energy's on, when they're tapped in. This can also be a gate that will channel if they have a certain figuration in their human design chart. And so they also would be really great to, if someone in your life has a gate 12, to give them some words of affirmation. Projectors, right? Projectors, they literally, part of their strategy is getting recognized. In order to get a correct invitation, a projector needs to be recognized. And so words of affirmation means you're constantly recognizing the projector in your life. That's going to be really, really important to forming a cohesive bond with your projector. And the fifth line profile. The fifth line profile is a profile that is this walking projection field. And whenever it is in the wrong projection field, it's getting cursed at or, criticized or ridiculed or rejected. But when it's in the correct projection field, it's going to get positive words of affirmation. And so make sure that your fifth line, the person that you love in your life, that's a fifth line, is getting those constant words of affirmation. Okay, letting them know that they're in the right projection field when they're with you. And quality time. The open spleen. The open spleen loves being around a defined spleen. It just feels good to them. They get a little boost in their immunity. They get a little intuitive, a little boost in their intuition, and a lot of people who have a defined spleen, if you've ever dated someone with an open spleen, you'll find that the open spleen just wants to be with you. They just want to be with you all the time, and they want to maybe, if they can't be with you, they want to be on the phone with you all the time. They just really love having that energy from the defined spleen. And the open spleen tends to hold on to things longer than it should. So it's really cute how the open spleen can sometimes really want that defined spleen in their life and want to just keep them there. And that's going to be really important whenever you are showing them love. You're going to understand, oh, this quality time is how I show them love. The second line profile, the fourth line profile, and the fifth line profile. So the second line profile, it's shy. Okay, it needs privacy. It needs quality time alone. And it also needs quality time with their loved one as long as they're not being pushed into it. Because the second line profile is shy, it needs to have the ability to retreat. The 2-4 profile is shyness and boldness. The second line profile can be bold. It can be very extravagant and the center of attention, but only when it's called out. And when it's called out, it has to follow its strategy. Okay. And so when it is bold, it really needs that downtime to kind of discharge that energy that it's picked up and go back into its little cave or its hermit shell and return to, you know, the privacy that it needs. The fourth line profile. The fourth line profile, it is very foundational. And so it's not going to be a profile that will make changes easily. And because it is friendship, it needs a network. It needs friendships that can give it that foundation. And that's how it gets its foundation, through relationship. Okay? And so it needs that quality time with you. Also, the fifth line profile. The fifth line profile, when it's in the correct projection field, needs the quality time that you can give it so that it feels what the correct projection field feels like. And it can support it in recognizing, oh, that's the wrong projection field. I'm following my strategy. I'm not going there. This doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right. And I put in here also the open solar plexus. Now the open solar plexus, the little caveat to this is it does need quality time, but the quality time has to be where there's not a lot of drama, where there's not a lot of emotions, okay, that are coming straight at it. It has to be able to just relax and veg out and hang out without, you know, getting really dramatic or someone causing a lot of drama. If that's going on in their life, then they're going to run away. You know, it doesn't feel comfortable for them. And they need to discharge that extra energy because they're not designed to hold on to emotional energy. They're not. And if they hold on to it too long and they don't know how to be wise about emotional energy, then they run from the truth, they run from conflict, they become codependent, they run around fixing everybody else's problems so that they can feel good when they're around that person. And so having the correct quality time for the open solar plexus is going to be key. So I just threw those out there, but now let's go deeper and find out what creates all these connections in human design. And you know, it's interesting because I read an article years ago and I remembered it while I was preparing this slide deck. And one of the questions it asked was, what causes, you know, the most conflict in the world, whether it's on a personal level or whether it's on, you know, a global level, a cultural level. And, you know, one of the responses that I thought it would be lack mentality. When you have a lack mentality, you're going to be, you're going to have all these problems and all these conflicts, and it actually wasn't. It was intolerance. Intolerance. And that's one of the great things about human design that I really just appreciate, because when you see somebody else's human design or your own human design, and it starts clicking for you like, oh, that's why I do this. That's why they do this. I mean, how many times have you picked up or learned something about human design and it clicked for you and it made you kinder to yourself or kinder to your loved one because you understood this is who they are. This is the truth of who they are. They're not going to change, and this is what they're here to do and bring and provide. And so that is really important as we understand human design, is that it creates a lot of tolerance in your relationships, and that's going to be one of the keys to creating more love in your relationship. So now we're going to go through briefly some of the human design types, some centers, some of the circuitry that goes on, profiles, and gates. Okay, and I'm going to try to get through all of this. And so I might talk a little bit fast. And so again, if y'all have any questions, make sure that you include all the details as we go through these, because I'm going to be hopping through these topics pretty quickly. So in human design, you know that there are 5 types: the projector, reflector, manifestor, the generator, and the manifesting generator, okay? Each type in human design has a different way of bonding, right? And let's talk about how their aura creates the bonds. So a generator type aura, a manifesting generator or a generator, their aura is open. It's very open. And the reason it's open is because it is bringing things for it to respond to. And so you may have a generator that has a lot of definition in their chart, but guess what? They're still open. Their aura is open, okay? And that's why the generator will ask, who am I? Because it's so open, it's taking in this aura and that aura and, 5 auras at the same time. And it's like, wait, who am I? Which one am I? And it's designed to have self-awareness through the sacral response. And so if it's not tapped into its sacral, then it doesn't know who it is, and it becomes the not self. It becomes whoever it thinks it is, and that will be, depending what your chart looks like and what you have in your chart and how much openness you have in your chart, how many centers you have open. That's also going to add to this. So the generator will literally bring things to it, and it will be very open, okay? The projector has this focused aura. It's penetrating, and it penetrates you to your core. It will see who you are, okay? It taps right into your G center. It knows your identity, and it can see your potential, and it can also see where you're kind of slacking, where you could do better, where you can make corrections, what's going really well and what's not. And so the projector is asking, who are you? Okay? And that's how the projector will bond, by getting to know who you are, right? And then it needs that invitation to share with you its discoveries that it has, the discoveries that it's made because it's focused in and honed in on you. The manifester. Now, the manifestor's aura is not open, okay? In fact, it's closed and it's repelling. The projector, it needs to be around sacral energy sometimes to get that life force energy, to feel energized so that it can go do something. But the manifestor, it doesn't. Not necessarily. The manifestor has a ball of energy, and whenever you come up to the manifestor, its aura is closed. You don't make an impact on the manifestor. It actually pushes you and repels you, and it makes an impact. And so the manifestor's aura is asking, who do I impact? Okay. And lastly, the reflector. The reflector's aura is sampling. It's resistant. It's not closed, okay, but it's also not very open. It's sampling aura. And it will discover what's out of place, what's missing, what's different. And the great thing for the reflector is because it is so open, it has no human design centers defined at all. It will constantly be sampling different auras, and it turns into those auras, but as soon as it leaves, it can also leave that energy. And so they learn quickly, they catch on quickly, and they also forget quickly sometimes. But the reflector is looking for who is different, who doesn't belong here, who's out of place, and they can spot that really easily. So now let's talk about sleep for a quick second. This is where I wanted to talk about the generators and physical touch. Generators, they are able to sleep with any type and go and have a sound night's sleep. The only thing that the generator has to do is get rid of all that sacral energy at the end of the day. And that might look like they are exercising, or maybe working really long hours, or learning something new. As long as they're getting all that energy out, they can lay down next to any human design type and fall straight to sleep. The open sacral can't do that. I mean, it can, but if it does that, it's not going to get the quality sleep that it needs. Also, the open sacral not only does it need to sleep alone, it needs to go to bed about an hour before it's tired. And the open sacral will will get quality sleep when it does that. So now I don't mean that an open sacral doesn't like physical touch. That's not what I'm saying, or snuggling, just make time for the open sacral to sleep alone, whether that's a nap or sleeping at night on their own. Allow them to, have the bed to themselves, the room to themselves for a little bit, so that way they can get quality sleep. Now let's talk about some of the centers. Again, I want to reiterate the G center. The G center is where we find love in the chart. It's one of the places that we find love, right? And if you have the cross angle of love, then all of those gates that make up your incarnation cross are going to be in the G center. So the G center will ask, whenever it's open, whenever it's undefined, am I lovable? And that's because the open G center has this unique ability to go in and out of other people's aura and amplify their G center. And so when it's around these friends, it likes this music. And when it's around these friends, it likes this food. And when it's alone, it doesn't listen to that music and it doesn't eat that food. And so it's like, who am I? Like, I constantly change no matter whoever I'm around. So am I lovable? Is anyone even able to love me? Because who will know who I am? Okay. The defined G center, now it stays consistent. It doesn't change its identity based on who it's around or what environment it's in or where it lives. And because of that, the G center, when it's defined, will ask, do you love me for me? Okay. So now let's look at the profiles, because I think the profiles have a little bit more of a bonding strategy than the centers do. The first line profile, it is deeply insecure. And the way that it gets security is information, okay? And so imagine having a first line as a mom. And by the way, I'm a 1-3 profile and I have 3 kids. And they know this about me because it's not personal, but having information will give me security. So when my daughter wants to go out, I'm like, who are you going with? Who's driving? Where are y'all going? How long are you going to be? If your plans change, make sure you call and tell me, let me know. And, that security is given to me through information. And it's not that I'm trying to sabotage her. It's not that I'm trying to prevent her from going out. But it's scary sometimes letting your teenage daughter go out with her friends, and having that information gives me the security that I need to be like, okay, she's going to be safe and things are going to be okay. Also, the first line profile is foundational, meaning it does not take change easily. It doesn't make change easily. It can't. It's too insecure to just like switch their plans around unless they have all the information they need to make a change. And if they don't have that information, then they won't make change quickly. So if my daughter tells me, oh, hey, mom, we're going to this different restaurant, and I don't know where that restaurant is, I'm like, wait a minute, no, you can't. I don't know where it is. I have to look up the restaurant, see where it's located, see how long it's going to take them to get there so that I know whenever she comes home, how long it'll take her to get home. Okay? And it's not personal. It's not that I don't trust her. I have a deep trust for her and respect for her. It is purely energy. All right? But you can imagine having a relationship with the first line and having them ask you all these questions all the time. It gets tiring, right? But when you understand that, oh, they're insecure and this is giving them that security, and it's not to sabotage you, it's not to stop you, it's just information to make them feel secure, then you can bond with the first line. Then you can be prepared, like, okay, here's where we're going. I don't have this information, but I have this information. The second line profile. Now, the second line is shy. It needs privacy. And even when you're hanging out with the second line, it can kind of feel like the second line is fading into the background if they're not being called out, if they're not being bold. You know, it's sometimes we call it being antisocial. They can be social, but there's also times when they don't really feel like it. They want to stay home. Or they go out, but they kind of withdraw from the conversation a little bit. The second line profile needs to be called out to become bold. And so when you see your second line profile partner, you know, fading into the background, call them out, you know, according to strategy. Include them in the conversation in some way. Invite them in it or give them something to respond to. The third line profile, this, okay, again, and I'm speaking from experience here, the third line profile is a little bit of, it can get you in a little bit of trouble. I'll just say that, okay? We call it bonds made and broken. Okay, so enough said, right? No, I'm joking. But the third line is great at making bonds because it has this chameleon aspect to it. The third line is a kinesthetic learner, meaning it has to be hands-on. It has to learn by doing. So how is the best way to learn what your partner wants you to be in a relationship? Become it, right? And so the third line does that. And then after it becomes whatever you want it to be, after it gets a real sense of, okay, this is who they want me to be. And then they'll acknowledge, oh, this is who I am. Are these in alignment? Or am I a better person being around this person? Is what they want me to be something better than what I am? Is this something that I want to accept? Are they challenging me? Is this good for me? And if not, if they're making you worse, you know, if you're angry around them all the time or frustrated, or maybe you start picking up some bad habits, well, the third line's going to see that and pick up on it really quickly and break that bond. Now, even if the relationship is really great, the third line over time will see, oh, there's all these cracks in this foundation. There's all these cracks in this relationship. We need to dig this up and reset it. And if it can find someone that it can do that with, then it will stay in the relationship. If you can't constantly be building and repairing and making and breaking bonds with a person, then it will leave, okay? The third line profile has this push me, pull me energy. On one hand, it loves being alone. It needs to be alone, but when it's alone, it wants you. It's like, oh, I want you. I miss you so much. Come. But as soon as you get there, then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're here. Why? Just give me some space, okay? I need some space. It's very experimental, okay? It needs to experiment. It needs to learn kinesthetically, like what happens when I press this button? Oh, like this really aggravates my partner. What should I do? Like, let me press it and see what happens. You know, how do they react when they're angry? How do they react when they're sad? How do they react when they're, you know, when they're happy? You know, it needs to experiment and push people's buttons and figure out, you know, in a very kinesthetic way and hands-on way, how that person is in relationship. The fourth line relationship is friendship. This is a great line for friendship. And even after the fourth line breaks up with some of their exes, they can remain friends. You know, they actually are designed to do that, especially if their ex is a fourth line, okay? And the fourth line profile is, the way that it bonds is you have to be friends with it first. It's not, if you just rush into a relationship with a fourth line profile, it's not going to last. They are foundational. They don't make changes easily, and they don't want to hop in and out like the third line profile. So you can imagine if a fourth line profile, like maybe a 4-6, is dating a 1-3 profile, and the third line profile is ready to bail, the fourth line profile is going to be like, oh my God, what happened? Like, no, stay. I need you to stay. I don't have another foundation to walk into. Or they might say, okay, well, let's still be friends. And the third line profile is saying, friends, no, bonds made and broken. It's broken. It's over. I'm done. Bye. And the fourth line profile is like, what? Why are you doing this? You know, it is foundational and it needs that friendship. And so it's not going to, it's typically the profile that won't rush into relationships. It has to build that foundation first. And it also is the profile that won't rush and leave relationships. It will stay in relationships even longer than it should until it has another relationship to walk into. The fifth line profile, it can be a bit of a white knight in shining armor. Okay, it can rescue you. And because it's really good at rescuing you, if I said that right, I don't even know, because it's really good at being able to rescue you. Sometimes what can happen is the white knight in shining armor initially is, the hero, but eventually becomes the villain. And it depends on what projection field the fifth line is in. As soon as it's rescuing you, as soon as the fifth line rescues you, you're like, wow, the projection field is great and amazing and it loves it. But then if it's not, your problems don't get solved, then eventually you start blaming the fifth line. And the reason for that is that the fifth line is like a walking mirror almost. And that mirror is constantly projecting into the world who you are. And so you get to walk around and see yourself in the fifth line. And when that happens, you ignore who the fifth line really is. They're the one behind the mirror. And it gets really lonely there. And so a relationship that's going to last with a fifth line is a relationship where you're not making assumptions about who this person is. You're asking them. And you're constantly validating whatever you think you know about them. You're letting them tell you who they are, and you're not assuming that you know them because, you're most of the time you're looking at yourself, right? And the sixth line profile. The sixth line profile needs a soulmate. And so dating a sixth line profile, in the back of their mind, depending what phase of life they're in, they are going to be checking and looking for soulmate qualities. And because they have a triphasic life, the first phase of their life that lasts 28.6 years, it's going to be a lot of trial and error. And they're going to experiment with relationships. But then they're going to withdraw until around the age of 50. And during that withdrawal, they won't really have as many relationships as they had in the first half of their life. And during that withdrawal, it's really important for them to heal and to learn. Because after 50, they become what's called the role model. And this is when they receive their soulmate. Now, something interesting is that a soulmate does not have to be a lover. It could be a best friend. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, so now let's talk about electromagnetics, right? Electromagnetics in human design is all about attraction and attracting. These auras are attracting hanging gates and other channels and gates and centers into your life. And what happens is it creates dominance, compromise, and companionship. And we're going to talk about each of those now. So first, if you look at this chart, everywhere it's purple, those are her electromagnetics. These are her this chart is my daughter's. And so she is attracting into her life all of these energies that will give her definition or will complete some of her channels. So if you look at the solar plexus, it's open. Okay, and the open solar plexus is not designed to hold on to emotional energy. It's designed to be wise about it and understand it. But if it's holding on emotional energy for too long, then it starts becoming codependent. It starts, being addicted to drama maybe, or it starts hiding and running away from conflict and, and avoiding the truth. And so you can see here that from her root to her solar plexus, there are 3 electromagnetics, and then one I didn't color in, from her will center to the solar plexus. So she has 4 electromagnetics for the solar plexus. She's designed to have emotional energy. And the sooner that she becomes wise about emotional energy, the better, right? Because otherwise she's going to be in for a little bit of a roller coaster ride. Now, just because you have a lot of attraction, meaning you have another half of a channel with someone else, it doesn't mean that it instantly creates attraction. You know, sometimes like in human design, you either have it or you don't. You either have the energy is a high expression or the low expression. And so just because you have a lot of attraction with someone else, it doesn't mean that's always a good thing. It can be a bad thing. It can be a relationship that's extremely volatile. And when you're happy, you're really happy and you're passionate. But when you're angry and mad and resentful, you're really angry and mad and resentful, and that passion comes out there too. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at attraction in your human design chart. The other thing that we have in human design is dominance. And dominance means that they have an entire channel or a gate that you do not have. And this actually is a really cool place, because this is where you really get to see your partner or your child or your boss or your friend. You know, you really get to see them because you don't have this energy. So you notice it. Anywhere in human design, there's openness. You'll take it in and you'll amplify it. And so you get to take in their energy and amplify it and be wise about it. And guess what? Because there's dominance here, other people will also see their energy, and it's something that everyone sees in this person. And so it's like, wow, they really shine. You know, and the chart on the left, they have the 1222. Well, that's a juicy, romantic, musical energy. You know, it's kind of like the bad boy energy. And then the chart on the right, it doesn't have it. So the way that they'll experience the chart on the left, they'll see it. They'll see like, oh, this little bad boy quality to it. This like really kind of like a rock out music is really important. They'll see that person kind of come alive. Also, this is articulation. This person will be able to speak very well, very clearly, very articulately, and express themselves. And the chart on the right will see that. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I really see that. You also have what we call compromise in human design. And what that means is that one person has the entire channel and another person only has half of the same channel. And so in these charts, you can see that we have, if you look on the left, the 5720. And let me see if I can, okay, no, I can't. Oh, wait, maybe I can. Okay, so we have, I'm going to draw on this, the 5720. And the chart on the right, it only has the 57. Okay, so this person on the left has all this intuition. And it's talking about the intuition. But the person on the right, it doesn't make it to the throat. Now, when I get around this person, it's taking in the 20. You know, this chart gets to take in the charisma and the 20 of gate 20. But guess what? The chart on the left does not need the chart on the right. The chart on the left has its own energy, thank you very much, and it does not need your 57 because I have my own 57 and the 20. And so while the chart on the right, it has its attraction to that 20, it creates a compromise. And compromises can be very painful if you don't have the awareness to understand what's going on, because it can feel like you don't need me, you know? And if you look at the chart on the left, this is a manifester. You know, a manifester, its aura is closed. And the chart on the right is a generator. The generator chart is open and enveloping. And it's like, hey, why aren't you being open with me? You're a manifester and its aura's closed. And with all the compromises in here, we have a compromise at the 50-27. There's one at the 40-37. There's one at the 30-41. I'm sorry, I'm scribbling on this just to kind of show you. And let's see where else anymore. The 40-29, 46-29. That's a compromise. And so you can see, oh, the 25-51 is also compromised. They have the whole channel on the left. And so imagine a dad that's a manifester that has a closed aura, and his daughter is a generator, and she's open. And she's like, "What, Dad, why aren't you being open with me?" You know, on an energetic level, she senses that there's this closeness to him. He's closed off. You know, and it can be very painful if you don't understand what's going on. Or imagine that your wife is a manifester and her aura is closed and you are a generator. Or maybe you're a projector and you are wondering why your manifestor wife is closed off to you sometimes. It doesn't feel like she needs you. And because the projector's aura is focused and penetrating, guess what it focuses on? You know, it will focus on the compromise. It'll go right to that compromise because the projector is wondering who you are. And its aura will penetrate and focus on what needs to be corrected. Well, what needs to be corrected is you need to open up, but the aura doesn't open up. That's not what a manifestor aura is designed to do. And if it opens up, it can't make an impact. See? Okay, so I'm going to clear this scribble scrabble off. So next we have companionship. Now in companionship, this is where you have the same gates. And it's not a dominance, right? It's not someone has the channel and you have a gate and they have the same gate. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where they have the same gates as you. And let me go ahead and just draw on this just to clarify. They have the same gates as you and there's no, so here they have these two charts, they each have the 5. This is rhythm. They each have the 29. This is commitment. They each have the 49. Ignore that green. That green is open. Just ignore that. They each have the 40-37. Okay? These are areas where there's companionship, meaning friendship. And what happens is when you have companionship, you don't have you don't have the same expectations as compromise. You know, compromise is like, hey, I'm attracted to you and I need your energy. Why aren't you listening to my input? You know, why can't I make a contribution? Why can't I make an impact? And companionship, you're not in competition. You see that, oh, this is how you are in community. This is how you form community. And this is how I do it. And that's a place for connection. You know, oh, I like how you made that commitment. Oh, I like your schedule. This is my schedule. This is my rhythm. And these are my rules. You know, they both have the gate 49. These are my rules. What are your rules? And this is in an area sometimes, and because we ignore the parts of our chart that are defined, what can sometimes happen is you don't really notice the companionship that you have with someone initially. You kind of notice more of the stuff that you're amplifying. And so just depending on how aware you are, will be how much friendship, how fast the friendship can form based on your electromagnetics. Okay, next we have gates. So just to touch on gates, because I'm almost out of time. I knew this was going to happen, but I just had so much I wanted to throw in here. The fear gates, all the fear gates come off of the spleen, and those gates can keep you from bonding and experiencing love. And the reason is because the spleen is the gate of survival, excuse me, the center for survival. And it is propelling you and motivating you and warning you, giving you these little intuitive whispers like, hey, do this, go here, leave now, stay away, don't go down that dark alley. And it does that through fear. And fear keeps you alive. It keeps you sustainable. It keeps you living another day. But sometimes what can happen is something that scared you in the past, it's no longer a threat to you now, but it's still holding you back. You're still paralyzed by those fears. Also, whenever we look at the gates, we see some red flag gates. Now, these are gates that can easily be misunderstood by others and by you yourself if you have them. And these are just a few. There's more red flag gates. But the gate 21 is a gate of control. It loves having something to control or someone to control. And so it's really great being, it doesn't mean that they're bad at, bossing people around. They can be very kind and very loving. They can be very feminine about it, especially if they have like the gate 2 and they have a lot of nurturing and, the 5027, they like being in charge. They want to be in charge of the family, and they could be really good at it, and these are people that need to have some type of managerial position, or they need to have either an invitation or be responding to being in charge of a family or something. Okay, they're great at managing money. They're great at making sure everyone has enough resources, and it's a really powerful, supportive, tribal energy. Now the gate 28 is a little bit of a trickster. It is the gate of struggle. And it's a fear that life has no meaning. And if things are too easy, then it didn't mean anything. And if you really had to struggle and fight for it, then it meant something. And so they are constantly responding to different, or being invited into different struggles that will create meaning in their life. And then they're designed to take that meaning and share it with others, share their experience with others. But sometimes in the not self, it can look like they're just struggling, just a struggle. Gate 51 is the gate of shock, and this is the energy that is very illuminating. It's designed to surrender to a higher power, and you shed your ego and walk into being a priestess or a priest, being higher in walking into your higher self. But sometimes in its low expression, it can be the gate of shocking you for fun. Oh, it's fun to be provocative or wear something shocking or say something shocking or inappropriate or inoffensive. Ah, ha, ha, it's so fun, right? That's the low expression. Another one is the gate 63. The gate 63 is the gate of doubt. And when you're around this energy, if you don't have it, you become very paranoid and you doubt yourself. You doubt what everyone's saying. And that's not what this gate is for. This gate is in the head center. And it's designed to take all these ideas and inspirations that the head center gets and kind of say, okay, well, what idea or inspiration is really worth exploring? It has to have that discrimination. However, if you start using that doubt on yourself or on your friends or on your loved ones, it's going to be really difficult to form that cohesive bond. So putting everything together, just because you have an electromagnetic, it doesn't mean that you're going to like the attraction that it creates. It could be a bad attraction, not necessarily a good attraction. Not all auras will bond the same. And so you can't expect the projector to be open. They're not. They are focused, and they will focus in and penetrate one thing at a time. They want to get to see you. Whereas the generator, it's very open. It's taking in this person and that person and this energy and that environment. It's very open, and it has to constantly ask, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And it needs to make sure it's tapped into that sacral so it can have that self-awareness. Each profile has a separate way of bonding. And understanding that a third line profile that is designed to make and break bonds probably won't fit very well with a fourth line profile who does not make and break bonds. It keeps their bonds, they're even after the breakup. And making sure that the third line profile is at a point in its life where it's mature and it can have correct relationships instead of in its experimental phase where it's just running around making and breaking stuff. Each center adds another component to conditioning, right? The more openness we have, the more we're taking in, and that's where we can be conditioned. And you also have the red flag gates and the fear gates. And so I want to keep this time right now to answer any questions that y'all have. But before I do that, I just want to invite y'all into a 2-hour live Q&A. On Tuesday, January the 21st at 7 p.m., what I want to do is, if you are want me to look at your chart, and if you're like me, you want me to look at your kids' charts, your brother, sister, parents' charts. That's how I am. I'm like, okay, I'm open, right? I'm like, okay, let's get everyone in and bring it in. I want to make a live Q&A available so that you have a chance to look at all the charts, and I will go over all of the connections and the bonding strategies that each of the charts have whenever I compare them to each other. It's going to be about 2 hours. It will be recorded, and if you have any questions about it, go ahead and email me at WeCare@Kristin Shorter. I am going to send out an email to this. I am going to limit this to 10 spots, and I'm charging $47 for the class. And I want to limit it to 10 spots to make sure everybody has a chance to bring in all the charts that they want, because I know, and believe me, I know that you want to see more than just one connection. You probably have several relationships in your life that you want to look at and compare. And so I'm going to make all this information available to y'all if y'all are interested in that. So now I'm going to take any questions.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the first one that came in was on Zoom. It was Paige. I think it's more of a comment. I'm a generator recovering from brain injury, frustrated by decreased ability to take certain routine actions, and her husband is a projector. Both of us are splenic awareness. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Serena said, could we rephrase the repelling part of the manifestor aura? It's traumatic. Is there
well, that is manifestor. It's not designed to traumatize anyone, but the manifestor is literally pushing you away. That's how it makes the impact. And if it can't do that, then it's not able to make an impact. And so it's not meant to traumatize anyone, and it's not like you're constantly repelling people, and that manifestors can't have loving, cohesive bonds and deep connections. That's not it at all. But when it's ready to make that impact, because the manifestor has this ball of energy in its aura, when it's time to hit that cue ball again, if you're playing billiards, it takes a lot of force and a lot of energy. And when it makes an impact, everything moves. When it does it right. So I'll think of another word, but I'm just.
You kind of used impact quite a few times.
Yeah,
so it's an impactful aura.
Yes, it is very impactful.
When it brings it in instead of, and that might be, to me, that might be why some people that you come in contact with, because it's so impactful, it might put them off, not necessarily repel, but put them off because they can just sense that.
That's true. And it's also this closed aura. It's not designed to be impacted. And so you have this projector that's trying to penetrate the manifestor, and it can't. And the projector's focused on what it can't do, what's wrong, like why aren't you open? Because this generator, most of the world are generators and they're all open. Why isn't this manifester, that's only 8% of the population, why aren't you like everyone else? Why won't you let me in? And it's because it's not designed to be impacted. It is designed to impact. And a quick little story, Karen actually has a manifestor friend. And the story that she tells is how he carries this piece of paper in his wallet that says, if I'm having a heart attack, leave me alone, with a little bit of vulgarity in there. I will crawl to the hospital myself. Like, the manifestor doesn't want anyone to do anything for it, okay? It's like, hey, I'm going to do this on my own, okay? And so that doesn't mean that, of course, you can't do acts of service for your manifestor or cook for your manifestor, but like, it doesn't, for the impactful things, the big things, the manifestor is designed to impact, okay? And so let it, let the manifestor impact.
Okay. And going over to Facebook, Alina says, I am a 3-5, lots of bad experiences in relationships due to projections I do not like to have put upon me. And I'm very lonely, bad relationships. People project their stuff on me. I'm very bored and irritated with this and just leave them. Would you have any advice for that 3-5 there?
Yeah, as you're leaving them, that's the good thing, right? The fifth line isn't designed to stay too long. It will rescue and then leave. It will stay in a relationship that creates the correct projection field for it. And I don't know your age, Elena, but the third line profile, the 3-5, it's known for getting divorced the most. It's known for breaking up in relationships the most because it has this experimental quality, bonds made and broken, but it also has that projection field and it doesn't feel seen. And so if as long as you're moving on and leaving those relationships, the third line, it matures, the 3-5 matures around the ages of 40. And so it knows what it wants because it's had all these bad experiences. It can do relationships really well. The tricky thing is you have to make sure that that fifth line is getting the recognition that it deserves. It's in the correct projection field, and that you're with somebody who will ask you, hey, did you roll your eyes at me because you're mad at me or because, you're criticizing me? Like, oh no, I didn't even notice I rolled my eyes. That was just a habit that happened. Let me think about that and let's talk about that, instead of in reacting to something that you weren't even aware that you did. And so just that awareness, and it will get better. It will get better as a third line experiment.
We did have people that commented throughout on, what gates they had and things like that. I see 2 questions. We're past the hour. Do you want to take those 2 questions or? Okay. And they want you to post your email again.
Yes, I will.
Okay, so the first question was from Sam Mitchell on Facebook. I learned that splits are here to show singles which I would have missed, single definition, how to be in a relationship. What if they don't know that? How can we help them?
Well, singles don't need anyone else. So
well, that might be a single. Okay, I might have actually did that wrong. I put the word definition in.
Okay.
So splits are here to show, I would imagine, people who are single how to be in a relationship. What if they don't know that? How can we help them?
Okay, I understand. So if you're single, people who have a human design split are here to show people who are single how to have a relationship?
No,
or single.
You might have to say it again. Here's what I'm interpreting it as.
Okay.
Is that there's a single person that has a split.
Okay.
So they're here to learn about how to be in a relationship.
Yes.
Because that's going to, but what if they're not aware of that? Okay. How would you talk to that person if you knew human design and that, this is the way that you could learn to be in relationships?
Yeah, totally. The thing about human design is it creates tolerance. it like as soon as that person understands what human design is and what their type is, and you start like telling them the intricacies of their chart, then they're like, oh, that's why I do that. And then you show them their partner's chart or maybe an ex-boyfriend's chart, and they're like, oh, that's why he did that. That makes sense. And that's what human design really does. It's done it for me and my family and my relationships, and I would definitely share human design with that person. I would need to see a little bit more in their chart, like what's their bond strategy, what their profile is.
I was actually right the first time. She commented back. She said, I learned that people with splits are here to show single definitions how to be in relationships. What if they don't know that? I don't know.
Okay, yeah. So the single definition, it doesn't need someone else. So in order for them to be in relationship, they need to be with somebody who doesn't have that codependency. That can feel really smothering for them. And so I would look at the charts and see what's going on, see where the points of contention could be, where the bonding strategies kind of like butt heads a little bit. For example, during the presentation, I was talking about a third line profile and a fourth line profile. If you put those together in a relationship and one is a single definition and the other is a split, if there's dominance, if you don't feel needed and you're a projector and you hone in on, wow, I'm not needed. There's a lot of dominance here and this chart doesn't need me, then you want to become aware of that and help that person understand that. But it's, I would have to actually see the chart, which is why I want to do that live 2-hour class so that I can look at people's charts and actually give you real live information and answer these questions a little bit better.
Well, okay, so the last of the two, here's the second question. Hi, I'm a 4/6. I'm 51. I'm in the home stretch. I have both the 21 and 51 gates. How will that affect growing into my role model leadership?
Well, I need to know where those gates are in your chart, like what planets they're in. But just from what you're telling me, the 51, when you step into that role model phase, if you've done your experimenting and your healing, you aren't shocking people. You're surrendering and you're leading people to their higher selves. Your 21 is not controlling people, and it's not controlling, hey, make sure that this advice that I give you as a role model, you do it and you follow it, and you have to do that. The 21, when it's in its role model phase, the gate 21, when it's in its role model phase, it's going to say, okay, look, this is what I can control and this is what I can't. And this is what's worth controlling and this is what isn't. And as long as these things are controlled and I'm doing what I need to do to make sure that we have enough, then I don't need to control the people in my life. Or maybe you do need to control some people in your life. Maybe you are, a grandma and you're taking care of kids, or you're in a corporation and you do have things that you have to control. That 21 is going to empower you to do that correctly.
There was just, again, we'll want to put the slide on, and if you give me the link, I can add it in, or you can add it into the description of the replay on Facebook. But we will be sending an email out tomorrow.
Yes.
Correct? And the last question I saw that came in was from Bettina on Facebook. A confused single definition can get really stuck in partnerships of all kinds, business, love, family. That wasn't the question. A 2/4 is a major challenge. Sorry, the question was from Sherry. Both hubby and I are 5/1 manifestors. Together 40 plus years. Congratulations.
Yay.
Still lots of crazy at times. How can I best see our start.
Yeah, so y'all have had, many years of learning each other and bonding with each other. Y'all are both 5/1 profiles, and that's really unique. My son's a 5/1 profile, and just constantly asking my son, like, why did you do that? Why aren't you obeying me? Why didn't you do your chore? Is it because you hate me? Is it because you don't know? But I'm just joking. But like, hey, why aren't you doing your chore? Is it because you don't like this chore? Do you want to do another chore? Is it because you got caught up doing something different? Like, I want to discover, I want to constantly learn about him and stay curious about why things are happening, why he's doing those things, because the more information I have as a 1-3, that first line profile, then I can make changes and we can go experiment. Like, okay, you don't really like this chore anymore. It's done. Well, let's find another chore that you can do, because in my house, my kids have to do chores, right? And so based on our family, this is where you make a contribution. And so when y'all been together for so long, sometimes what can happen is you start saying, oh, this is who that person is. And that's important. You want to be able to think, okay, I know who this person is. But you also want to be aware that sometimes you may think this person is doing something for this reason, and they might not be doing that. And they might have thought you wanted that. You want to just make sure that you are being curious. And if you're upset about something, you want to talk it out. You don't want to just assume that person, is sabotaging you in some way. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm not getting another response on Facebook, but that was what everyone is saying. Thank you. Great show.
Awesome.
Sandwich. So
awesome. I'm
again,
glad y'all liked it.
We'll post the email.
Yes.
And the link in the description. Or Kristin will do that.
Yes, I will do that on Facebook. So head over to the Human Design for Everyone Facebook page. I'm going to put that in there. We're also going to send out an email tomorrow so that if y'all can get in there, because there are only 10 spots left. So I want to make sure everybody has enough time. Because I know if it were me, I'd bring all my kids' charts in. So, all right, everyone, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Bye.